to start your day. It is 7 minutes after 9 o'clock into the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. Quite a number of things that we've discussed today, and I think it doesn't get lost in what's happening in the country, indeed around the world. And then wherever you're tuned in from, I just want to say, as we keep the conversations buzzing, important that we do then continue lending our voice to this. And as we set the agenda for some of those areas, always good to have you connected with us. All right, this hour, we're going to be talking about a number of things that you've heard in the open over the last couple of days, of weeks, at the expense of consumers. How government to government oil supply deal cost Kenyan motorists billions of shillings, and you didn't even know it. We're going to be having a conversation with Martin Chomba. He is the chairman of the Petroleum Outlets Association of Kenya. No stranger to the Situation Room, as we've had conversations with him before. Important for us to look at exactly what is going on right now and what it means for you. Once you enter public transport, once you use your own vehicle, whatever it is that you do, this affects you. And so we'll have a conversation about that now. Martin, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
How are you?
I'm all right. Can't complain.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Karibu sana.
And my senior here, City. Good to see you too.
Habari masiku bro?
Iko salama kabisa.
Uko sawa?
Yes.
Asante.
Say hi to Anki.
Hi, Anki.
Anki is our guest host for today.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So let's welcome you in true Situation Room style with today's proverb. They're from Côte d'Ivoire this week, and then you tell us what you think about it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When the finger knows not where to go, it goes into the nose.
Mm-hmm. Martin?
When the finger knows not where to go, it goes to the nose.
Yes.
Into the nose.
Yes.
I think if I were to interpret that proverb, I would say that generally, and I will use people, gravitates towards the known. In terms of turmoil or uncertainties, people coalesce or gravitates towards what is familiar, what is very natural to them. So that is how I would interpret it.
That's what I mean. Absolutely.
That's a wonderful interpretation.
It really is.
It is, yes.
It's just fascinating.
Simple to the point.
Exactly.
Yes.
You
Thank
gravitate
you.
towards you don't know. Or rather, you gravitate towards what you know, what is
Yes.
familiar. Okay. Let's gravitate towards what we know, shall we?
Please.
And give information of a report that came out that Kenyan motorists have been overcharged approximately 16.4 billion shillings or 2.7 shillings per litre of fuel since the government began oil supply contracts with the Gulf-based firms in March 2023. One, the agreement with Saudi Aramco, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, and the Emirates National Oil Company replaced a previous agreement, open tender system where local companies competed to import oil. So there was, before that, there was a tender system. Everybody comes and says, let's do this. No. So there was an agreement to get oil directly from the Gulf area. Consultants from the Channel Consulting Limited and Current Technologies have recommended ending the deal, citing higher costs compared to the open tender system. So historically, there has been an open tender system for the purchase of oil for Kenya, and now that's changed significantly with this G2G oil deal. The report reveals that local suppliers such as Galana Oil and Gulf Energy have not passed on the expected benefits, which has resulted in inflated returns compared to previous margins. And so, naturally, that means that you then pay more for fuel today with the deal than you did before. Martin, is this the case?
Yes, this is the case.
What's happening?
First is I would want to look at this from two different angles. The first angle is the one that gives that actually buys into the proverb of today, the proclivity towards what we, the familiar place, and the other one is the one which is not very common. The truth of the matter, because of the deal of G2G, the contract around G2G, I don't have the very details of the G2G, but the contractual agreements makes it not oscillate much. So in actual sense, what happens is because the pricing in the world is like, it's usually like, it's curvy, it's wavy.
Yeah.
So the line at the middle is what gives us the average pricing.
Yes.
We call it weighted average. So, like in the past few months or so, close to a year, is that the prices have been favorable, and when that is happening, it is crafted in a way that the companies out there that are giving us product do not lose. Neither, when the prices go very high, they don't go beyond a certain threshold. Thus, that, as it were, makes them have a standard kind of costing. What it's important to look at is not only how much we have lost, and this is where I want to be the devil's advocate in this case, is not to look at how much we have lost. We have to look at it in context. What was the purpose of G2G in the first place? And has it gained what it was supposed to gain? The purposes of G2G as designed at the onset of this administration was to curb the runaway cost of inflation in terms of dollar against the Kenya shilling. And it was touted much that the dollar was headed towards the upwards of about 180 shillings to 200 shillings.
Okay.
So the question here is, the 2 shillings that we are losing today,
2 shillings and 70 cents.
Yes, call it 3 shillings that we are losing in terms of buying that fuel through G2G. How much would we be losing? We are losing 3 shillings when the dollar is exchanging at around 130. Upheavals associated with Gen Z and everything notwithstanding, the dollar has still held steady at that level. So what would have been the other side? The other side would be probably the dollar would be, and this is hypothetical because it could have been otherwise. I don't want to state like it's written somewhere, cast on stone, that is what it would have been. But given the trajectory that we had, we would be expecting that the dollar was supposed to be trading at around 180 thereabout. So that is how I would want to look at this from that context. But from the plain eyes view, the truth is that if we hold all factors constant, that the dollar will still be trading at 130, then the truth is that we would be losing 2 shillings and 70 cents per litre, which is not okay. But on the other hand, we know that our economy and we are volatile. Everybody else out there, the geopolitics of the world, everybody sneezes out there and we catch cold.
Sure.
So that is also an angle to look at it from.
Are we also saying that without this G2G deal, especially because we're talking about here to the Gulf states, right?
Yes.
So we're looking at Abu Dhabi, we're looking at Saudi Arabia, with that triangle. Are we saying that without that deal, if it was left at an open tender system, that we would, all of us who purchase fuel, would be doing that at 270 less than what we are doing today when APRA comes and does its thing on the 14th of every month? That without that and living within the open tender system, we would have seen a saving of 2 shillings and 70 cents if the G2G deal did not exist. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. Let me bring this home further. Okay. I am a proponent, the greatest proponent of OTS, because in Kenya we run a market model we call a free market economy. And in a free market economy, you let goods and services, demand and supply, determine the prices. But unfortunately, because of some reasons that the Kibaki regime explained to us when they were starting the OTS, is that one, petroleum is a security item. It's not just another thing. If somebody plays around with petroleum, they can grind the country into a halt. So they decided one of the reasons why you have centralized ordering system of petroleum is, among other things, to make that sure the government has information of how much fuel is in the country and it can last us how long, and knows who has what capacity, and so that we don't sabotage. The other thing that is also very important to note about OTS is that we were spending, or rather we spend in this country about $500 million a month in procuring product outside this country. $500 million a month is no mean in terms of cash that we mop out of economy. And that sometimes was putting a lot of pressure on our forex. And that is what now made the government, the previous regime, to manage the dollar artificially, where they would release a certain, I think about $2 million a day or something like that. If you need more, you can't get. And you see the petroleum industry is crafted in a way that it is very highly capitalized, and the KRA is on your back. So you cannot get your product if you don't pay. You cannot, the guys with the fuel cannot release that fuel in Mombasa unless they have seen money.
Yeah.
So everybody in the morning was running helter-skelter to look for dollars. And that's how we ended also creating a lot of lucrative off-grid dollar markets in the country. And this has since subsided since we got into OTS. So I have into G2G. I am not a proponent of G2G because it is a command economy for me. If in any way you look at it, I would propose that we have the free market. But then again, for those kind of reasons, then we have to make do with what is provided.
If we look at the reasons why government went into this G2G deal in the first place, there were certain things that then would be guaranteed as a result of the deal, that you would then always have a constant supply of the petroleum needs for Kenya. That there would not be a moment whereby you say there was a shortage of fuel, or that there was uncertainty in the market, or that you would not then be able to dictate based on what was happening on a global scale, or that if OPEC decided to do 1 or 2, 3 things here, then that it would affect. So, and specifically for these countries where it is not an issue. So let's agree amongst ourselves that this is what you're going to pay for it and you're going to get it. You're never going to have to think about it. That was one of the guarantees that came. But from what you're saying, then there would appear that there would be some then losses whereby, in as much as you want guarantee constant supply, you would then not be able to guarantee a favorable
the
market
guarantees
price.
Comes at a cost.
The guarantee comes at a cost. So if government is taking into consideration the needs of its citizenry, and because we know fuel affects everything, the price of fuel shoots up, everything else shoots up. Food, transport, everything else, there's a ripple effect, that takes place as a result of that. Why would government then decide to do this, knowing full well that would increase the amount that citizens would have to pay for this very much needed fuel?
As you've said, those guarantees comes at a cost. My biggest beef with government when it comes to the pricing of petroleum and the gains of petroleum is that we may understand as citizenry, we may understand why they needed to do what they needed to give us those guarantees. But now the problem is when the market favors the country and these little coins accrued or accruable to the common person at the pump. So what they did a few months ago is that they increased the levy fund, because if you notice, even when they increased the levy fund, the prices of petroleum did not change in the country. Meaning that was supposed to be a drop. There was supposed to be a drop of about 6 or 7 shillings. But then again, because of the pressure of rejecting the finance bill and raising more money or something, that's my own prognosis on it, is they decided that instead of passing the 7 shillings to the common person, they increase the levy fund to probably beef up their, because as people, and as people who understand the political economy, we may understand why some of these things are done the way they are done. But then again, it would only be fair that if the market out there, the fluctuations within the market out there allows for something to accrue to the common person so that they can have an ease at the pump, then you allow them to get that. And that's how people would appreciate that when the prices of petroleum go high, then we appreciate, we understand. But when they go low, we should also be able to enjoy. And when you leave that, people to feel that, the people may not have a beef when prices go up and when they come down, because they understand that if we get benefits at the source, then you pass them to us. But if you get a hit at the source, then you pass it to us and we get benefit, you don't release it to the people, then that becomes a problem for me.
What I hear you to be saying is that the G2G arrangement achieved the complete opposite of what it was supposed to achieve. Because if you look at and if you simply read about government-to-government agreements, the whole point of it is that, one, if it is something to do with, say, the petroleum industry, you will afford a certain stability, meaning these fluctuations and uncertainties will be reduced. When it comes to certainty about the supply of the product, it will be available. Again, when you relate the manner in which we buy our products with the dollar, simply because the arrangements will have been made so that you get the best sort of deal here meaning, yes, at a fixed rate, for instance. So we will be protected against the vagaries of the shilling or whatever it is. And because the G2G has to do with the relationship between the two countries, many certainties are protected. Now, if all we're seeing within the petroleum industry is the complete opposite, fluctuations, the very thing in which we're supposed to receive by the bucket load, certainty, we receive uncertainties. You're not certain. And now you have a situation where you're being told we now need to increase. So you wonder, what were the details of the G2G agreement? I, as an individual, accepted it on trust, saying that
government is doing the best thing for you.
Yes, exactly. Now, when what I see is the complete opposite, and why I say it is something that needs to be observed, the problems that we have would occur if, for instance, our shilling was fluctuating violently against, say, the dollar. It's not. It's not.
It's not violent.
No, it's not. In fact, minimum. So why then? What is causing this thing? Now, are we saying that the prices of petroleum products in the world market have suddenly shot up tremendously? Again, brings me back. What agreement did we have?
Allow me to add something to what Siti is saying, because I'm looking at other voices that are weighing in, and very key voice put emphasis that the success of the G2G, and I'm reading directly, plan should not only be seen in terms of declining the fuel prices, but also, according to him, its ability to create a new market for foreign exchange, reducing the reliance on commercial banks for dollar purchases by oil importing companies. Now, according to him, and it was very keen Treasury, says this actually worked. So we should not only, look at it in the eyes of the fuel, but according to him, there are successes that we are seeing in regard to the G2G. I don't know if you share some of these sentiments, even as you add to what CT also brought.
Let me say this. It is important to note that the government of Kenya does not own even a liter of oil in this country. It doesn't.
Yeah.
The agreements that we are calling G2G today is just a guarantee. The petroleum logistics industry, because I've always said that we don't have a petroleum industry in Kenya, we have a petroleum logistics industry where you get this product just the way it is from here, point A to point B, is fully in the hands of the private sector. And the fuel we get mostly is imported by the multinationals. And when they import, when the private players are in the market, they don't care much whether the dollar goes up or the dollars go down, as long as they get their profits at the end of the day. So the interest of the government is what made them, the interest of government on the dollar, because at the time they were getting to G2G, the dollar had really gone, I think, to 160 something. And they, as he's saying, they have achieved to bring the cost, because I'm in the market that I know. Every morning we would run to go and look for dollars. It was a Herculean task. It was crazy, because at the end of the day, there's also not a very good agreement or congruence of ideas between government departments. You'll find that KRA has their own demands, that you have to pay this much for you to access this product. On the other hand, Treasury does not have enough dollars to release to the market. So at the end of the day, the private player is at the center of that. So the idea of G2G is primarily premised on what you'd call protectionism idea. And government was trying to protect themselves against, because the dollar is dealing with other things. So when we mop every dollar in the country and take it to the petroleum, then other industries suffer.
But Martin, this issue of the dollar, as you mentioned, it raises a completely different discussion. Why was the dollar doing the yo-yo? Because why these fluctuations, whether it's gentle or whether it's violent, some of it is within our control. Some of it is outside our control completely as a country.
That I agree.
Yes.
That I agree. You see, the reason why the dollar, to me, by then was having this kind of an issue. I'm an international scholar, so I like looking at a number of things out there. The federal government in the US had raised the interest rates.
Yeah.
So, and the intention was, during COVID, they had released a lot of money into the market. And that money had no value. So the federal Reserve Bank wanted to mop
it up.
So every serious company would want to go and invest their dollars in a very stable economy, which is the US. And when they were doing that, we were feeling the heat, and it was across the country, and especially the global south. Every person, you look at people from Ghana, from everywhere, you saw the same trend that was happening. So everybody now was for themselves and God for us all, because the feds, all they wanted is, we want this money out of the economy, the global economy, and so that they can balance the value of the dollar.
So are we saying they are the ones who caused the dollar shortage?
Of course. By and large, I would say the mop-up of the dollar by the Federal Reserve Bank was the biggest reason. Among other simple issues, it was the biggest reason why there was a lot of capital flight in terms of dollar from countries, especially in the global south. Because remember, most of the people that are working in global south are multinational organizations who are not necessarily domiciled in terms of their headquarters in those global south countries. So if I'm Martin and I'm a multinational organization and I'm domiciled in France, the guys from France will say, collect the dollars, your profit in terms of dollars. We have a very good lucrative investment opportunity in Federal Reserve Bank, and we ship that money. So that caused a lot of issues in terms of how government would manage.
So how would the G2G arrangement help us allay this or stabilize what you've just described? Because what brought about the instability was outside our control.
Yes,
Even
the
though we are
G2G, what
exiting
the
in December.
G2G came to help with was the time they have given, the 6 months arrangement they have given, that you don't have to get the dollars today. So between the shipment and the payment, there's 6 months that you are given to take all your time and accumulate those dollars, so that you can pay the countries and the companies, because this is the arrangement. When you say like the G2G, you say the Galana of this world and Gulf, they bring in product to Kenya. They bring for everybody. Previously, Galana and Gulf would expect you to pay them in dollars.
Yes.
But today, they accept that because you are selling at the pump with Kenya shilling, pay us through the dollar. Our arrangement with KCB Bank or whichever is providing the LC will allows us now to try and mop up the dollars. Convert this money into dollars in our own time and pace.
All right. Sorry. Do you mean that in the 6 months there was the possibility of getting this on credit?
Then there was no possibility. But you see, when government came in, and that's why I say the government now gave the guarantee that give her the fuel. I guarantee you that she will pay you in 6 months. So that is the only role of the government. The government does not own anything, and that's why we have a lot of issues that we pick with government, because they sometimes play like they own products, but they don't. And because the government interest is the public, sometimes it will override the dealers, and that's why you'll see the next big story is about the costs that is the study that is being done.
The cost, and also that come December this year, the likelihood of government still being in this deal then is rather low, because they've already announced that we're probably not going to be doing this come January 2025. We'll come and talk about that when we come back from the break. Martin Chomba is here this morning, and we're looking at the G2G deal vis-a-vis what Kenyans have to spend, what Kenyans have been spending for the last couple of months, or rather last 6 months, 7 months, a lot more than probably they should be, and how billions have been consumed that shouldn't have been. All right, we'll come back and continue with that conversation. It's 28 minutes to 10.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It wants tax. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in this way.
Ben low, ninter, ayuu markhaati ka dhigtaa. You know this character called liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And you must blame it on Adam, not because Adam messed up and he was told, no, you fellow, you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The weather with Spice FM.
So looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, we'll see highs of 26 and then coming down to lows of 18 later. And looking into Nyeri this morning, cloudy conditions going to highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 28 in highs of 24 in Nakuru. We'll see highs of 24 in a partly sunny Eldoret, currently at 16, and we're looking into a sunny Mombasa going to highs of 29, and a partly sunny Malindi going to highs of 29 as well. Kisumu at 24 is cloudy with highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 28 in a mostly cloudy Kakamega at 23. It's 22 and sunny in Kampala, and looking into a sunny Dar es Salaam at 25, going to highs of 30. Johannesburg at 19 is sunny, highs of 26, and at 26 it's sunny in Mogadishu and sunny at 17 in Addis Ababa. It's a hazy Lagos morning at 25, we'll see highs of 30, while into Kinshasa it's cloudy at 24, going to highs of 31. Into Beijing Friday afternoon it's sunny at 30 and it's 13 and mostly cloudy in Paris with 17 and cloudy conditions in London. Thursday night, clear in New York at 18. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 25 and lows of 18. All right, coming out of traffic hour hasn't been too terrible this Friday. That's usually the case on Friday, except, Magadi Road, folks said, you know what, we'll clog up this thing. And then coming on to Langata Road, just some traffic left as you're trying to get into the city. All in all, it's not been too crazy a morning getting in and out of the city. And we're just seeing the dregs of morning traffic left for us to consume or deal with as we come out of traffic hour. However, still through the morning, talk to us, Spice FM, KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Talking things petroleum for the next 25 minutes. And in terms of what actually has happened as a result of the G2G deal, what it was intended to bring in, certain guarantees that were put in place, at what cost is a question that Martin has been asking this morning, and as well as then coming out of that deal in December 2024, which is what has been said, that is what will happen. So then the question is, Martin, did it achieve what it was supposed to achieve?
I actually believe that what they told us it was supposed to achieve, we achieved. But once we achieved, the question is, did we have an exit strategy? Because, like I said, it was a protectionism idea. The government of Kenya was trying to protect itself from the volatility of the dollars and the effect that it would have in the entire economy, not just the petroleum industry. But now the problem is, and this is where I see the truth is that we are losing some money, but not as much as we would have lost if the dollar was trading at that high rate today. But the question is, do we have an exit strategy? Have we put good economic incentives that will now maintain that if we go back to OTS, which means that we'll have now to buy directly, and that means that we'll have to procure dollars on a daily basis, can the economy stand that kind of a demand on the dollar? Or will it now push the exchange rate again high? And if we are not prepared for that, for the exit, then for how long are we willing to stay like that? So either we devise a new model that may be a hybrid between OTS and G2G,
right?
Or we just brace ourselves and say that because we cannot exit, I promise you that it is not easy to exit.
Well, let's look at what government said. Right?
It's expiring, but it will always be renewed.
It will be an option. Well, let's say the government admits that one of the challenges that the initiative faced was failure to meet minimum oil import volumes as agreed. They agreed that at this very minimum, we will bring fuel into the country.
Thank you,
right?
you brought that idea.
So they said, look, we've not been able to do that, and that's what we agreed with the 3 Gulf-based oil exporters, which caused an extension of the program to December 2024. So I said, because of that, let's give it some more time, right? Government also went on to say in the first 6 months, the average monthly import volumes fell short of the monthly minimums agreed under the arrangement. This was due to lower demand from the domestic market as well as from the regional re-export market. I want to stick on to that point.
Please.
Why was there a lower demand from the domestic market of this G2G fuel? So they said, okay, let's at least have this very amount, but they didn't want to deliver fuel more than what was being consumed, because then essentially you wouldn't pay for it. But there seem to have been internal factors that affected this external agreement. And what was that? Because that's right where you sit, Martin. Why would there be lower domestic consumption of this petroleum?
At this point, I want to declare a conflict of interest and say that in other quarters, I discuss the whole economy, just not the petroleum industry. And this is one of the biggest questions that we've been asking, or rather I've been looking at and doing a bit of write-up about. Anybody who has been keen in the Kenyan economy, the first time we started having a hit on the economy, serious hit, where every other sector felt and started to dwindle. And even if you look at the numbers from the guys who are in charge of the data, you realize that since 2018, at the very introduction of VAT in petroleum, that is when every other sector, I don't know about the media sector or these other sectors, but I know every sector that is associated, which works closely with petroleum industry, started taking a hit then.
Martin, which industry? Which industry?
Okay, I was just being polite. Okay, so if anybody else this has not been given, I've said this quite a couple of times, but it's not been given the attention it deserves. But if you look at it then, this is what happened. Value added tax at the face value, you add value on something and then you charge that tax. In petroleum, I said we have petroleum logistics industry. We don't add any value unless you say transporting it from point A to point B is value adding. And for me, that is a big issue, because what we did is that we loaded a cost without adding value. And today we are having 16% of the cost of petroleum not anchored on anything.
Say that again.
We are having 16% cost of petroleum in this country not anchored on any value that has been added.
Give us an example of what you mean. If it was anchored on value, what would that look like?
Let me give you an example and say, if, let's say petroleum is this water, this bottle I'm holding. If I was to add a value on this water and make it today, I'm selling it at 10 bob, and the government decided that there shall be value added on water, they need to have told me, or somebody need to tell me, what value now have I added today on this product? Because if I made it flavored water and they charge me now on the value,
that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Okay.
So what value have we added on petroleum?
Okay.
Cost.
You see?
The cost.
I like your sense of humor. If there's no value at all that we added on petroleum when we added a VAT, all the government wanted then was to add or collect some more.
Look, there was a need for more for revenue.
Yes,
that
but you
was
see,
what was required.
I need to tell us something. This now ties with what you just said, that the demand for petroleum has gone down in the country and in the region. Because everywhere now you go in the region, you'll find that there's value added tax. When President Kibaki came to power, what he did is that he abolished VAT on motorbikes. You know what that did to the industry?
The industry exploded.
It exploded. Because I've been arguing this way. the amount of money that the government collects in VAT on petroleum pales in comparison into what they would collect in terms of taxes of petroleum, the normal taxes of petroleum, if people was using petrol and diesel as they were using then. Because what has happened today, the VAT on petroleum today, if we knocked off the VAT on petroleum today, we're likely to do away with about 25 to 30 shillings from the cost of petroleum as it is today. Okay?
So that
Meaning,
Go ahead and do.
that at the pump
would go to 150.
Okay.
I wanted to bring in a headline here yesterday because I think it's most current and because of your area of expertise. Reading directly from the front page, costly fuel looms on push for bigger oil dealer profits. Now what they're saying is we're looking at about 8 days for EPRA to review again. An EPRA-backed study proposes an extra 4.45 or rather 4 shillings per litre. The proposal could add to the cost of living pressure. You understand what that means? And I just want to understand, if you explain it to us, because Kenyans will pay an extra 4 shilling per litre of fuel if a proposal in a study commissioned by the energy regulator is adopted, adding the cost of living. And the study by this particular consultants is proposing an increase in margins offered to oil marketing companies be increased by 12 shillings per litre from the current 8 shillings per litre. That is for the retailers, and the wholesale margin to be increased from 4 shillings to 4.6 thereabout. Now, what
That's like the elephant in the room. I think I have quite an information. I think yesterday I published a writing about that.
So what really are we looking at?
What we're looking at, okay, let me just hold the thread together with what we were saying before. So what I was saying is, before I lose that, is that if we drop VAT on petroleum, what would happen is, not long ago, City, if you and your friends would decide to go to Naivasha, and each of you'll find your way to Naivasha, and you'll eat your meat, and each of you will find their way to Nairobi. Today, you want to take Ndut for a function that she has. Most of you guys will carpool.
Yes.
Because the costs have gone up. And this is the what I've been telling the government, that if they release VAT today, they'll take City back to a place where he can afford to drive his car.
Okay, sorry.
Without having to pull with somebody else to go to a certain function.
Okay.
And that will increase the uptake of the petroleum and more taxes on petroleum.
It sounds simple as you say it, but if let's just break it down so we can understand what we're saying here. That the thought is that, okay, government needs some more in terms of revenue.
I agree.
So what they do is that they slap a VAT on a product, right?
Yes.
So that the 16% essentially is going to bring in more money.
Yes.
If you spend on it, it brings in more money.
Yes.
But what actually happens in the market is totally different.
Exactly.
That people see, come on, this has become so expensive. So they decline to purchase,
yes,
which would essentially give government what it was looking for in the first place. So that action becomes counterproductive,
exactly,
and counterintuitive.
Exactly.
So what happens is that we're all going to get in one car, use less fuel,
yes,
and purchase less.
Yes.
But
you pay them their VAT.
You pay them their VAT, but we're spending less.
Yes.
However, if you release that means Anki's buying fuel, Martin's buying fuel, Ndu's buying fuel, CT's buying fuel. You get more.
You must have been a very good student. You got it. Exactly. That is what I mean. They release more. They release that, we spend more. Today, let me tell you, they have also brought in, they gave an avenue, and it's a very good thing because it is consistent with what the world is doing. You see, whenever you go, there are these communication masts everywhere. Those masts used to spend a lot of diesel. Today, they are all on solar. Why? Solar is cheaper than fuel. So you have VAT on fuel, but we are not using it. We are going for alternative modes of energy. So before you know it, what the VAT you are getting will become lesser and lesser and lesser. Before you know it, nobody is using that fuel.
In fact, Martin, in 2020, 2021, during the COVID period, something very strange happened. This VAT existed at 16%, and then the then President Uhuru Kenyatta reduced it to 8%.
8%, yeah.
Now, something strange happened. That year that I'm speaking of, the government projected a certain revenue. They actually met it.
Exactly.
Strange. They didn't increase taxes, they reduced taxes.
Yes.
You know what I find strange is that there is a certain madness and there's a certain narrative that people have had about austerity. It's utter lunacy. It has been proved conclusively that nonsense doesn't work. And yet you still find people speaking about it as though it's revolutionary, as though it's prophetic, that, this is what we must do. It has never worked.
No.
So what makes you think it's going to work for you?
Yeah. Okay.
This one, you don't need to be a student of economics to understand that the way economies grow and mushroom is when you release money into it, not when you take money away from it.
You incentivize and this is what I've been saying. We must stimulate the SMEs. And SMEs are you see, the government is not the greatest employer, it's not the biggest employer. All over the world, the private sector
it's not even their job.
The private sector is, and that's why I say it is lopsided when people look up to government for employment. The government today is competing with the private sector for money in commercial banks. The government will always win. And when the government wins that war, then you'll find that today, the only companies that are declaring profits at the end of the day is banks and multinational corporations who do not have to rely on the Kenyan economy to do what they do. So everybody else is having an issue. You can't get financing, and if you get financing today, there is no business today you can do and pay 20% on loans and make profit. You pay your workers and you are paying a loan of 20%. You cannot. There is no business. So today we are in a musical chair.
It's a horrible.
It is not coming. I don't want to lose your point because this is very important. So what has happened is that the government through EPRA is mandated that every 5 years they must conduct what we call the cost of supply of petroleum in the country. Why? Because, as I told you, we are in a command economy where the government tells you that you are selling at this much. So in 2018, we had the first COSOP. And that COSOP is supposed to be done every 5 years. Actually, the one that is happening right now is long overdue.
All right.
It's supposed to have happened last year. So this EPRA is supposed to engage consultants who are supposed to come now and independently look at the costs of supplying a petroleum product in the country and recommend the margins thereof, where they look at the plight of the common person and the people that are doing business in that value chain. So the conundrum here has been that in 2018, when it was first done, they gave a gross margin of 12 shillings and a few cents in the whole value chain, which is distributed in this manner. 4 shillings and some cents is given to the person that imports.
Right.
You see, like today you're saying Galana and Gav and all that.
Yes.
For their troubles of importation, they'll get 4 shillings. Then there's an investor. I've told people time and again that most of these multinational organizations that you see here marketing petroleum, they don't own the infrastructure. So the infrastructure is City. After his retirement, he gets a package and puts up a petrol station and then leases it to a multinational. So for that lease, or rather rent, and the cost of that infrastructure, they have appropriated another 4 shillings and some cents. And then we have the person that now who carries and shoulders everything is called the dealer.
Yes.
That person at the pump is the one who has a contract with the multinational. When City gives his petrol station in future, it's very prophetic, it will happen. So when you give your petrol station to the multinational, they will in turn give it to a dealer. And that dealer now is the person who comes now and runs the whole station. And they have 4 shillings at the pump.
Okay.
So that was given in 2018. Now the problem has been, and this is what has cost so many people out of the market. You remember 2022, there's a time we had a gridlock in this country. There was no fuel anywhere. That problem has been occasioned by the fact that the multinationals who bring in petroleum had gotten to a place where they were making zero. And when they're making zero, they cost us now, the people who run the petrol stations at the last mile, they were selling to us the product at the cost of procurement. Yet, there's a law in Kenya that tells EPRA that this is the price that you must give.
Stated, yes.
And when they give that price, it is in contradiction with everything else. And so, we opted to close. A lot of us opted to close. And that's how the country ended up without fuel. Now, this study is supposed to look at what is the fair share of each of these person in the value chain. There is a very big misconception in the industry today. Every time you talk about petroleum, people confuse high capitalization for high profits.
Okay, so difference being between the two?
The difference is you remember, I don't know whether you remember, there was a case sometimes the people who vend airtime had an issue with KRA.
Yes.
Because they make a very small margin.
The margin is small.
So today, petroleum. Let me give you a very good example too. Today, you stop at the petrol station next here.
Yes.
You fuel 1,000 shilling of super petrol. The person at the pump will have made gross of 20 shillings. Gross. Meanwhile, they have washed your windshield, they have done so many things, your pressure. Yes. You know, this is a high value customer. Why? Because most of the guys fuel 200. So in 200, this guy is making 4 shillings gross. Why? Because the cost of doing business since 2018 has more than doubled today.
Across board, and we're not just talking about...
but here... across board. But you see, the problem with petroleum is that it is regulated, it is statutory. You don't do it before 5 years.
Martin, is this why every petrol station now is a supermarket?
It is. People are in real estate. Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
People now who are doing petrol stations are not doing petrol stations to sell fuel. I own a petrol station. But I'll tell you this. Because I have a kinyozi that runs next to it. That kinyozi makes money than petrol station. And I'm telling you this. Why? Because that kinyozi will give me 1,000 bob maybe in a day. Money that I can get away from that. If I take 1,000 shillings from the sale of petroleum in a day, I've already eaten into the stocks. So there's something I've been telling the industry that petroleum dealers have been bleeding in hope. Because they are supposed to have this study done that now can remunerate them fairly in a way that they are able to pay their workers. Remember, this is an industry that employs over 1 million people in this country.
What needs to be done so that what previously was the case where people like you who are dealers actually find the enterprise worthwhile?
You see what happened when this study was done some 5 years ago. It was done based on a petrol station that is able to pull a throughput of 250,000 liters a month.
And how many petrol stations can do that?
Then they were a bit. Today, you and I know there is proliferation of petrol stations everywhere you go. People have this, and that's why I say there is a misconception because this is a highly capitalized industry. People think that's how the margins are, but people forget immediately. We have even had to sit with KRA sometimes to also explain to them again that both the profit margins are controlled.
They're minuscule.
Because people would expect that if you invest $1 million, you get at least 10%. In petroleum, you get less than 1%.
It is very interesting.
In terms of a profit that is accruable to you, net margin is less than 1%.
So where does I really need to understand where the misconception lies then, because one would assume that there's a petrol station, people are going to be driving. You rarely find an empty petrol station, right? You drive in and somebody's fueling. So the assumption, and it doesn't matter if they're 10 across the road, Mombasa Road, we can count between Haile Selassie Junction at the end of it before you get to the interchange. How many petrol stations are there?
There's
so many.
There are many.
But they're never empty.
The problem is, they are not empty, but the people who are fueling there, I've told you, an average Kenyan today fuels, the one who is driving, fuels 300 shillings, an average Kenyan. So when you find somebody fueling 1,000 shillings, you're like, these guys, the gods must be on their side. Okay? The other guys who fuel a lot are the motorbikes. But the motorbikes now fuel 100 shillings.
Yeah, that I think I know.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
but the truth is, you cannot get to that volume. So, if you are selling 250,000 liters, then today you are selling 100,000 liters a month.
Oh dear.
Wow.
If you're selling 100 liters a month and you're making 4 shillings, and that is gross, and you're supposed to be this with the same workforce that you've been keeping, then it marries into what I've been saying, that people have been bleeding in hope. Why? Because we know that this is a sector that you cannot run away from. It's just like if you're used to a certain place, this is what you know how to do. So even when things go south, you hold into that place, hoping that it's soon things will look up. And that's what we've been looking at. And that's why this study
yes.
is very, very important.
Right.
Now, the problem is when people don't understand the other side, it becomes sensational.
Right.
And it can easily become political fodder. Right now, this can easily become political fodder. But the truth of the matter is, every dealer you see operating, actually today I can show you the messages. Most of them have been telling me, Chairman, what do you think where do you think we are headed? Is this thing becoming real? Because they just want to make a decision. So many of them have already abandoned the stations. Actually, if you realize, you'll find that some multinationals have employed a very a measure that is supposed to be an austerity, but to me is counterproductive, where now the petrol stations now are being run. They get somebody, previously they will get a dealer who will bear all the costs. But now they want to get to a place whereby they have an idea they call young dealers. They want now to employ somebody who just came from school and probably give him a salary of 40,000 or thereabout. He will be very excited to run that. But at the end of the day, what happens is they are not able to shoulder the costs that are shouldered at the petrol station and employ the number of people that are employed. So at the end of the day, it becomes counterproductive in terms of job offers, and the accruable revenue to the government at the end of the day becomes an issue, because from those petrol stations, 1 million people, this is where you get pay as you earn, is where you're getting housing levy and all those kind of things.
I mean, we're going to have to end the conversation at this point, but we're still looking at a situation whereby, if not taking into consideration some of the things that we're talking about, it's going to get more difficult for a lot of folks.
Yes.
Whether you're purchasing, whether you're the one who's running the business, the business of petroleum, we know it's not cheap, but we're looking at a situation where, okay, so come out of the G2G deal in December. Are you going to go back to an OTS? Are you going to have a hybrid of the two?
Are you ready?
Are you ready to do that? Those are questions that we must keep asking and continue to have this conversation. Martin Chomba, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you for being part of Kenya's biggest conversation this week. And we come to an end of it and say, have a wonderful day into the weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday, God willing, at 6 a.m. Good morning. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life